Thank you very, very much. Y'all got one session left in you? Yes? Are you ready? If you're ready, say I'm ready. I'm ready too. You know, I said in the video that I believe the biggest gap in business, the biggest gap in life is the gap between knowing and doing. And I don't believe there is any greater example of that than when it comes to holding people accountable. We know we're supposed to hold people accountable. It's not a question of do we know we're supposed to do this. We understand what happens when we don't do it. We understand the impact that it has on momentum, the impact it has on morale, the impact it has on the customer experience, the impact it has on the other good people working around someone we're not holding accountable, the impact it has on our brand, and the impact it has on our credibility as a leader. And by the way, if you're like a person I had in one of my classes a while back, he said, you know, I just think it's harsh to hold people accountable. I think it's harsh to apply consequences. I think, I said, you know what's harsh? I said, stop a minute. You know what's harsh? Think about this. You want to talk harsh? Let's talk harsh, okay? Here's harsh. Letting somebody fail on your watch because you won't hold them accountable, because you don't care enough to confront them. Let them waste their life, lose their self-esteem, and never reach their potential on your leadership watch because you selfishly choose to do what's easy, cheap, popular, or convenient over what's right. Now, I don't know if you've ever calculated the cost of hiring just one bad one. I don't think you can put a number on it. I mean, you can maybe put a number on the production they cost you, but how in the world do you put a number on the broken momentum a poor performer will cost you? Would you agree with me? Is that a fair statement? Do poor performers break momentum? Yes. And when does it really hurt to lose the momentum? It's when things are going what? Well, if your bus is going 100 miles an hour and has a blowout, there's going to be a lot more damage than when you're stuck in neutral and you have a blowout. So when you're doing well, that's when they really kill you. And guess what? Here's the problem. When are we least likely to hold somebody accountable? When we're doing what? Well, you see the problem. Precisely the time they hurt us the worst is the time we take it's not such a big deal. Wouldn't you agree that everybody, especially your top performers, feel a little bit cheapened, a little bit diminished, working with people who don't cut it? People who do just enough to get by, just enough to get paid, just enough not to get fired. It's like hit the ball and drag Charlie, hit the ball and drag Charlie, hit the ball. Let's hit Charlie. You kind of feel like it eventually, right? What's it cost to lose your credibility, ladies and gentlemen? What's it cost as a leader to lose your credibility? You cannot put a number on that. You say, well, how do I lose my credibility? Well, my goodness, let's count the ways. People hear us, we talk big sometimes. We're number one. We're better than the next guy. Not everybody can work here, right? We got something special going on, and people hear what you say, and they're looking around at who you're keeping, and they are confused. Number one, better than the next guy. Something special. And this one's still here? And that one's still here? And this one's still there? Really? Really? Boss is talking right and walking left, right? I mean, and you will start to lose the respect of the best when you don't deal effectively with the worst. That's a promise. A lot of us, we don't even start looking for people until we're desperate, right? I mean, that's what I just admitted I did. I was waited until I was desperate. Are you familiar with the principle, as desperation rises, standards fall? Is that true? It's true. You've all been there. I've been there. If you've hired many people, you know the more desperate you get backed into a corner, you start rationalizing stuff. You start bending the rules. You start to use hiring as an inclusive process instead of as an exclusive process. As desperation rises, standards fall. This is a principle. This is a pearl I'm sharing with you here. It applies in hiring. As desperation rises, standards fall. It applies in dating. Some of you know. Look at your history. You know how it gets. The closer it gets to closing time, stuff that was not looking so good earlier takes on a new light. It's the same when you're hiring. How many of you, just a quick survey, how many of you had a better year last year than you did the year before? Just a show of hands. See? Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. You are the least likely to be doing this right now. Nothing personal. But as prosperity rises, urgency diminishes. And the better you start to get, the better you start to do, as I said at the very beginning, this starts to become less important to you. So what are we going to do? Wait till the next recession to get serious about accountability? Is that what you want? Have we already forgotten the lessons of the last one? Because that got a lot of you back to the basics, didn't it? It was helpful in some ways. It got a lot of us back to controlling costs. We were careful about who we hired. We held people accountable. We trained them. We maximized every day. But we've gotten away from that in some cases. We've lost that hunger, if I may be so bold as to suggest. If you're doing well right now, some of you, maybe some of your managers, have perhaps lost the hunger. I didn't get into the martial arts until my 40s. And one of the first days I was in the karate studio, my instructor pointed to 12 belts up on the wall. They were all on a plaque from white to black. And those are the 12 belts you had to go through to become a black belt. And he pointed to the red belt, which was a belt right next to black. And he said, "Do you see that red belt?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Let me tell you something. Those are the most dangerous fighters in this studio and in any studio you're likely to find." And I was a little confused by that. I said, "Well, okay, but what about the black belts?" He said, "Don't get me wrong. We have some terrific black belts here." He said, "But let me tell you what happens sometimes. Somebody gets their black belt and they think they have arrived. Now, even though there are 10 degrees of black belt in most styles," he said, "they think they've arrived. And so they stop training as hard. They become less coachable, kind of turn into know-it-alls, you know." He said, the number one thing people do when they get their black belt is just they start putting on weight. Okay, it's the number one thing. He said, "I have one friend that got it." He said he didn't come back for 6 months to train. And when they do come to the studio, he said they're not training hard. They're walking around with their thumbs in their belt tooths like they're Jackie Chan giving advice. Okay. He said, "But you see, the red belts are hungry. They haven't, quote, arrived yet. They've got that intensity. And they train hard, and they're coachable and teachable, and they've got something to prove, right? They're hungry." And so he said, "Here's the key." He said, "I've seen more red belts knock out complacent black belts." He said, "Here's the key. If you ever get that black belt," he said, "continue to think like a red." He said, "Act like a challenger, even if you're the champ." He said, "Challengers are hungry, they're humble, they have something to prove. Champs can get cocky, complacent, and start to lose their edge." I got to ask you a question, and this is not a rhetorical question. This is a real question. Are the standards you're currently accepting from each member of your team worthy of your organization? Are they worthy of your organization? I mean, think about that. And before you can answer it, you really got to think about your worst performer. I mean, so often we put so much into our organization. Great facility, great investment in people, great presence in the community. Some of you have poured your entire lives into your organization. And you've had this standard that is up here, yet what you accept is down here. And what most people do is what I said earlier. Rather than raise the person to reach the standard, they lower the standard to accommodate the person. But here's why a lot of us don't get here quickly. Here's why. Because we're spending too much time in our offices polishing a chair with our rear end. Getting dazed by data and numbed by numbers and immersed in emails and phased by phone calls, sending out memos. Let me tell you something. You can't build a great team by memo, by email or by voicemail. Some of us, we are no longer leading. Don't care what your title says. If you're not in the trenches making a difference, leaving people better than you found them, you're not leading. I'll tell you what, if you're going to build a welfare state, they'll come. Remember that movie Field of Dreams? Kevin Costner out in the cornfield, remember he's making the baseball diamond. What did that voice keep saying to him over and over again? If you build it, they'll what? You build it, they'll come. You build a what? You start giving people something for nothing. You start making it too easy for them to underperform and make a living. They're going to come. You build it, you build a welfare state, they'll come. I live in California, I know. And sometimes we create entitlement without even realizing it. I did it as a sales manager. I didn't know any better. I would take a house deal. I didn't know any better. And I'd give it to Five-Car Fred, trying to help him out, you know. You look at him, he's the underperformer, he's got a family, he's not making a lot of money. So you got to give it to somebody. I had a horrible idea. So about one a month I would feed to him, one a month. I didn't realize what I was doing until one month I forgot to give it to him. About the 28th of the month, he comes barging into my office all indignant like, "Dave, month's almost over. Where's my deal, man?" I was like, knocked the wind out of me. "What'd you say to me? Where's my deal, man? Where's my welfare check, man? Where's my something for nothing, man? Where's my spoon, man?" But then I had to get a hold of myself because I said, wait a minute, I've done this. You give somebody something for nothing and you make them good for nothing. Right? I mean, how's that old saying go? I talked about it earlier today. You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish, and you what? Feed him for a lifetime. I have an entitlement version of that. You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You give him a second fish, now you made him good for nothing. That's my version. You like it? You like my version? Here's why I say because now he doesn't want to fish and he doesn't want to learn how to fish. He wants you to bring him fish. And by the way, make it halibut. Blackened, a little lump crab meat on top. I mean, that's how out of hand it can get. And then you can't teach a high energy level. I mean, some people, they have drive, and they come in all fired up, but by 3 o'clock, they're out of gas, they're sprout out, their eyes are glazed over with tacos and carrot cake. And then what's really bad is when they don't have drive or energy. We call that a slug. And they shuffle around, they're just shuffling around the place, head down, hands in pocket, and you want to go up and tap them on the shoulder and say, hold on a minute, let me get this right. Out of millions of sperm, you were the fastest? Really? Can't change negative people. Here's the problem. If you're keeping them, just so you know, they become the welcoming committee for your new hires. You know that, right? Is that right? When you hire somebody new, who's the first group to go greet him? Here comes Five-Car Fred and the Fellowship of the Miserable. And they're going to get out there and they're going to say, this used to be a good place to work. You sure picked a rough time to get in this business. I hope you got some money put away. You're going to starve here for the first 6 months. And they major in misery, have a PhD in poverty and a doctorate in depression, and we keep them. What a sorry way to go through life. You wake up in the morning, you smile once to get it over with for the day, right? You go into work, you smell flowers, you're looking around for a funeral, and then they're coming in and they're infecting your culture. You can't change that about somebody. You know the problem with a lot of leaders today? They're so worried about being liked and don't give nearly enough thought about being respected. It's fun to be liked. It's nice to be liked. That's not the point. Are you respected? You know how you get respected? Standing for something. Doing what you said you'd do. Making the tough decisions. Doing what's right, not just what's easy or cheap or popular or convenient. That's what earns respect. And let me share something else with you. It's going to hurt some of your feelings. But if your people like you and they don't respect you, they also secretly mock and despise you. Just so you know. They think you're a joke. I have people today still who will come up to me at a meeting and they'll say, Dave, I want to do better, really I do, but I just don't have any drive. What can I do? I said, there's nothing I can do for you. Please get away from me. It's like, I don't want to catch what you've got. I mean, you've got to give the universe something to work with here, right? There's power in now. There's no power in later. You may not get later. You do it now. Go make it happen now. Go lead. And thank you for coming. And good luck on your journey. Fun to be with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
David Anderson.
Thank you.
Woo!
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.